I thought everything was great in the beginning. I mean, everything's always perfect, like I said. And then I started seeing bits and pieces of how Christopher really was. I was a stay-at-home wife. Due to my son being so young, I wanted to, enjoy those years with him. Then my daughter went to school right down the street. So I was home every single day. And it just started seeing like Christopher change like night and day. It was awkward. I felt really uncomfortable. After a while, we would argue about just the smallest things. And a lot of it also had to do with how he disciplined my children. And as time went on, like I could see him getting more aggressive and more aggressive. And I stood up for my kids all the time. I didn't like how he talked to them, how he wanted them to stand in the corner all the time, and I didn't like that. So I stayed a little bit longer. I ended up eventually getting pregnant with. I remember telling him that I was pregnant, and he wasn't happy about it. So I called my parents back home here in Albuquerque, and I said, well, Christopher wants me to get an abortion with. And my parents said, no, you're not. And I said, I'm not. We left again after a couple days. We came home to Albuquerque, and still I tried working it out where we were at, but it just wasn't working. I wanted out. And I had on my own. Ended up going back into the NICU. She ended up getting jaundice, and she went back to the NICU, so she was in the NICU, I want to say for a week to a week and a half. And that was when Kathy, Chris's mother, came out, flew down with her brother, Duran guy, or they call him Big D. They came down, and she was in the NICU. And that was when I felt like a plan was made, because like I said, our marriages it was on the rocks. And one of my neighbors had told me in San Diego, they had warned me, they had said, Nina, be careful, because Christopher is coming up with a plan with his mother. And they're planning on taking the baby away from you. And I hear a knock at the door. And I was like, oh, great, he's home. And it was Kathy's friend, Patty, that's an attorney. And she said, you called me by my real name, Gomez? And I was like, yeah. And she said, you've been served. She said, you have a protection order against you.
What?
You can't see. He's been filing for full custody, Christopher, for about 1 year to 2 years now, if I recall. A lot of this stuff is just, it doesn't make sense to me. He's made a mess. He tells people that I'm unstable, that I need a psychiatric evaluation, that I'm pretty much crazy. And forth, it's like a game to Christopher. With Christopher dangles over my head as if she's like some kind of toy to be played with. She's not a toy. She's a little girl that has feelings and strong feelings. We can't help the fact that Christopher decided to move to Tennessee. He chose that for himself. I've never known of a person that lives in a whole different state and still dictates what you can and can't do to the other parent. He had a choice to live here. He was actually told to move here by the judge. We were supposed to go to trial March 5th, I believe it was. He calls me that Wednesday, and he's like, and I was like, oh, great, he's calling, so I went straight to voicemail. And then he had said 911. Call me. So then I was like, well, it must be emergency, so let me call him. I called him, and I said, what's up, Chris? And he was like, he's like, Nina, I gotta tell you something. And I was like, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to tell me that the trial, we're not going to go to trial, that everything is going to be done with, and we don't need to worry, and we can, we don't need to do all this stuff. That's what I'm thinking. And then he tells me, I got to be open and honest with you. And then he pauses like for 6 or 7 seconds, and I'm like, I was like, what? What do you have to tell me? So then at that point in time, he tells me that Sebastian went missing. And I was speechless. I have to say, I was speechless. And then I went into saying, well, what happened? Like, how did he go missing? Like, what happened? And he said, well, he went missing between 12:30 and 6 a.m. And I'm like, it's thinking to myself, and then, that's crazy. And I said, where's Christopher? I said,
we have to go all the way back to probably December and January are going to be key months. There are a lot of events. There was a lot of turmoil surrounding Sebastian. We know that Chris Proudfoot was in the middle of a custody battle with his ex-wife. We know that the daughter did visit over Christmas break. We know that Sebastian was with Seth during that time. We know that that there was a DCS referral in, I believe, February to the Stafford home. That call was likely determined to be unfounded because the case was closed and that file is restricted at this time. I know Seth has tried to find out more about that call and he has been unsuccessful in doing so. But I've also recently learned that there may have been some talk about Chris leaving Katie, and I feel that probably had something to do with Sebastian, so there may have been some trouble in paradise. To me, these are all things that need to be considered. Could these things have led up to maybe Sebastian just feeling a certain kind of way, right, and leaving? If he overheard a conversation between Chris and Katie where Chris is saying
Hey y'all, when you get a chance, go ahead on and hit the like button. But I want to tell y'all, I just want to give my opinion on what I think. I believe they gave either gave Sebastian to a family member. Because really, we haven't seen his grandmother on his mother's side, the auntie on the mother's side, the cousin on the mother's side. we don't see nobody, her sister or brother or anybody on the mother's side. We haven't met none of those people yet. Could Sebastian be with somebody, some kin to the mother? The child think. Put it down in the comment section.
Happened to Sebastian?
He's not the type to put on. He's not the type to leave the house without putting on socks and shoes. As for running away or leaving, he didn't take his backpack. He didn't take his switch. He didn't take his phone. I mean,
So he would have run away normally, like a normal child.
just doesn't make sense. And he's not one to wander. He's never eloped before.
Leaning towards a potential kidnapping?
Anything is speculation at this point in time, because there is no, as they have said, evidence that leads towards foul play. But there's things that just don't add up. His mother was the last one to see him. She's responsible for this, either through negligence at the bare minimum.
Has she been a good mother to Sebastian?
Not in my opinion.
Why
This
do you
is
say
the
that,
third
sir?
time that there's an issue. You know, my son's come up missing now under her watch. Time before that, her and Chris let my son get molested and raped in their apartment.
What?
And the time before that, I did a well care check because she let a known sex offender who, yes, did their 9 years in prison, but she left my son around that person.
Y'all, all of this play a role in Sebastian. She letting all of these things happen to her son. So that means that she don't care. So allegedly, he has to be with someone. Someone had to take him from that house. And they know what's going on. All of this happened to Sebastian. Oh my gosh. There's a lot going on here.
You don't do that. If you're a parent, you don't do that. You're supposed to protect your kids. You don't put them in where they can get in any type of harm's way.
Wife allowed your son Sebastian, your ex-wife, I should say, your ex-wife allowed Sebastian to be in a situation where he was molested and raped?
In California. And Chris in her apartment.
Wow.
They let a child who was 5 years older than my son play with my son and didn't bother to check on him there neither. And he lost his innocence because of it.
Wow.